So in this video, I will introduce BCBS 239, explain what it is, and provide some historical context. Since BCBS 239 sits at the core of this entire reading, it's important to have a clear big picture understanding before we move on to the details. With that said, let's get right into the content. So basically, BCBS 239 is a framework that appears throughout this chapter, and it is worth briefly clarifying what it actually refers to. BCBS stands for the Basel Committee of Banking Supervision, while 239 simply refers to the number of the document. The full title of the document is Principles for Effective Risk Data Aggregation and Risk Reporting, which is also commonly known as the Principles for Effective RDARR. You will see these terms interchangeably, so it's worth knowing that RDARR stands for Risk Data Aggregation and Risk Reporting. And basically, from a testability perspective, what I want you to understand is that BCBS 239 is all about how to deal with data in a bank. One important consequence of BCBS is the rise of the Chief Data Officer function, which is in charge of standardizing data management for the firm. And this is just a side note, but it's worth noting that BCBS 239 is applicable for systematically important banks and scalable to other large banks. Putting things on a timeline, BCBS 239 was published in 2013, and the implementation deadline of these principles was set to 2016. However, the deadline was not met for several reasons, and the reading highlights underestimated complexity and costs as key factors. In particular, the underestimated complexity stemmed from the fact that advanced analytics such as AI or machine learnings were often applied on siloed data before fixing data foundation. So basically, because the original deadline was very ambitious and ultimately missed, the Bank of International Settlements subsequently issued progress reports, the first one being published in 2016, another one in 2018, another one in 2019, and another one in 2023. Across these reports, the conclusion has been consistent, progress has been gradual, but challenges continue to persist. The findings of the 2023 progress report will be covered in more detail in the final lesson. Now, the reading also highlights a point about the European Central Bank, namely that the European Central Bank has stated that financial and regulatory reporting is part of BCBS 239 compliance. And I find this sentence a bit hard to understand, and the reason I'm highlighting this is because there is a chapter and question with this regard. So, in simple English, what this statement means is that banks cannot claim BCBS compliance if they don't use BCBS compliant data in regulatory reporting. In other words, if a bank is BCBS 239 compliant, then it's not enough to use that compliant data for internal reporting. They should also use the very same BCBS 239 compliant data for external reporting.